here we go with the second page of our Cold War notes. So, February 1946, the conflict goes into crisis. Stalin gives a speech saying that capitalism, remember that's what the United States has, free enterprise, leads to competition over raw materials and then to war. That's why it should be avoided. George Kennan, a U.S. ambassador, wrote to Russia a long, a U.S. ambassador to Russia, comma, I need a comma there, wrote a long telegram to President Truman and said that the U.S. should use a policy of containment to stop the spread of communism. March 1946, the first major post-war crisis. A crisis is a time of um, great great debate. What do we do? Are we going to go to war or are we not? The USSR refuses to pull their troops out of Iran. The Soviet Union had shared control over Iran with Great Britain. Remember, when you think Iran, think, of course, of oil. In refusing to leave, the Soviets ignored a 1942 agreement with Britain, stating that both countries would withdraw within 6 months of the war's end. The USSR finally withdrew under growing US pressure. We really did think this might be World War III if they don't pull out. Oops, sorry. Fall 1946. Both countries of Turkey and Greece faced a communist takeover. Truman wanted to support these countries by supplying them with military aid and money. This is a policy called Truman Doctrine. If we give them money and we give them military aid, they will not fall to communism. Remember, we're trying to contain communism. In another project called the Marshall Plan, we're going to use US dollars to help European countries rebuild after the war. Now, this we were willing to give money to the USSR as well, but they had to buy American goods. And of course, they didn't want to. That would have them reliant upon us. So they came up with their own plan called the Molotov Plan. Where the USSR countered with their own support for Eastern European nations that they controlled, those that were not allowed to join the Marshall Plan because the USSR wouldn't allow it. All right, June 1948 to May of 1949, the Soviet Union imposed a blockade on Berlin. Remember, Berlin is the major city within Germany. Now, Berlin is split into four parts, just like West Germany and East Germany were split into parts. Now, here's the deal. The USSR wanted to force the Allies out of their zone. So they wanted to get the British out, they wanted to get the Americans out, they wanted to get the French out, and they wanted to take control of all of Berlin because that's the capital. That'd be like taking control of Washington, D.C. If you control D.C., you control the country. So they believed that the blockade would force the Allies to give up either Berlin or their plans for a West German state. Over the next 10 and a half months, pilots made more than 270,000 flights into West Berlin, and they carried 2.5 million tons of supplies. Now, what they did was they supplied them so that they could stay loyal to democracy and stay loyal to the Allies. This was called the Berlin Airlift. Remember, Berlin is in Germany. Now, all right, so you can see this map here. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a standoff. All the countries in green are over here under this list called NATO. All the countries in purple are over here under the list that's called the Warsaw Pact. Now, this is basically where we set up our competition. There's a dividing line. Remember, we talked about the Iron Curtain. That Iron Curtain surrounds this purple area here, and it basically represents everything east of it belongs to the Soviet Union. Everything west of it are friends of the United States. So we basically have gangs that form, right? They're country type gangs. So we form an alliance that's called the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. In short, we simply call it NATO. Now, you probably heard this in the last campaign. because Trump was saying, nope, we don't need NATO anymore. It's really old. Well, it started in 1955, right? So it is very old. But it is a form of alliances. So NATO is the United States and our friends. Here are these 14 countries. You're probably going to want to pause and write them all down. And then the Warsaw Pact was Russia or USSR's answer to NATO. So this is their gang with all their friends. USSR, Poland, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, and Albania. Now remember, we have Iceland, which you can't see on the map. That's why I gave it to you. Norway, over here. Denmark is that little country just north of Germany. West Germany, remember, Germany is divided into East, which belongs to the Soviets, and West, which belongs to an independent country. Italy, Netherlands, okay, that's way up here. Belgium. Luxembourg is this little tiny country in between West Germany and France. You get France, Portugal over here, Greece, of course, who we're going to talk about later. We did talk about with the Truman Doctrine. Remember, we gave them aid and military supplies, right, and money so that they wouldn't fall to communism. Turkey as well, the United Kingdom, and of course, the United States. All right, this is going to end our notes for page 2.